Welcome to Second and Short. It is November 9th, 2022, and the Houston Astros are World Series champions just 1 year after losing to the Atlanta Braves. So we'll get started kind of where we left off last week, which is Game 4. Of course, it's Game 4 that we miss. That's going to be the combined no-hitter. And yeah, that pitching performance was great. I'm a firm believer that no-hitter, combined no-hitter is not a no-hitter. You have to
That's
put
what I was going
combined.
to say. I was literally about to say the same exact thing. I fully believe a combined no-hitter is a no-hitter.
Yeah. And then, and there's not much to talk about Game 4 outside of the no-hitter. So we'll just go ahead and move on to Game 5, where a surprising headline that I didn't really know about until before this game started, that Verlander had never recorded a win in a World Series game.
I was just going to say, I also did not know that.
Yeah, and so gives up a leadoff home run to Schwarber, so that breaks up the no-hitter real quick. And then he bounces back. That's the only run he gives up, and then records his first win in a World Series game. And that Game 5 is kind of when the world saw that the Phillies were done. I think that the Astros had the upper hand by far in that one, and it just looked like the Astros were probably going to come out in Game 6 and dominate, and that's exactly what they did.
Yeah, I think everybody kind of saw this one coming when with the Phillies being hot. Is they thought they could do something, but I don't think anybody besides Philadelphia fans really believed that the Phillies could pull off the win here.
Yeah, and I think that probably comes down to the bullpen.
Yeah.
That was a struggle of theirs all throughout the season. I know, like, that was really the only thing that when the Braves played them throughout the season that they could take advantage of, was that as long as you can come in and hit after Nola or Wheeler comes out of the game, and you can get hits before Alvarado comes in the game, you're going to be fine. And the Astros completely took advantage of that. And so, and the biggest one in particular is Jeremy Pena, who won World Series MVP in his rookie year, making the Astros not miss Carlos Correa whatsoever.
Yeah. That's pretty good stat, or pretty good award to have behind your name, winning the MVP as a rookie.
Yeah, and it's funny because he's not going to win Rookie of the Year. That's obviously going to Julio Rodriguez.
Yeah.
And then the other big accolade is Dusty Baker winning his first World Series as a manager. And a fun little stat, 73 years old. He's the oldest manager/head coach to win a championship in MLB, NFL, NBA, and NHL history. So that's pretty crazy. Dusty has been around the game forever. I'm pretty sure I heard a stat in the history of Major League Baseball, Dusty Baker has either played in or managed 3% of the games played.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
That's
so
about time for him to get a title.
Yeah, and also the alleged inventor of the high five.
Alleged, yeah.
Yes, allegedly. I don't believe that whatsoever, but he's allegedly the creator of the high five. But we'll go ahead and move on from that. Congratulations to the Houston Astros, of course.
Good for them.
The Braves are going to win next year, so it's
fine.
Yeah,
Bravo's coming back.
Yeah, Braves in 4 in the World Series next year. I don't care who it is. But we'll move on to some of the college football results from this weekend. We'll start off with the biggest game of the week, biggest game of the year, really, is number 3 Georgia facing number 1 Tennessee in Athens. So final score 27-13. Georgia looked dominant.
Yeah, I think I said this last week. No one in the nation can stop that Georgia defense. They are leaps and bounds ahead of every other team in the nation. I mean, not only do they have, like I say all the time, like I've said last week, I'm going to say again this week, their defense is so dominant. I don't think there's a single offense in the nation that can even compete against it. And then on top of it, their offense is starting to look pretty good. I think their offense is looking a little better than it did last year.
Yeah, well, and then, the Georgia felt so confident going into that second half that Stetson Bennett threw the ball 3 times. So it's obvious that they're going to keep working on this offense, and I know we're kind of getting to the end of the year, but this offense just continues to get better every week. It may not look like it in that 27 points, but they were dominant for sure.
Yeah, I think that's what people forget is like you don't have to score a million points to be the best team. Just because they only scored what was the final score? 27-13.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the time of possession. I mean, Georgia in every facet of the game dominated. They didn't give up I don't believe they gave up the touchdown until the fourth quarter. I mean, I could be wrong, but it wasn't until late in the game that Tennessee got their first touchdown of the game. I mean, Georgia was so dominant that I genuinely do not believe anybody in the nation can come and do anything to them.
Yeah, and you were right about that touchdown. Didn't come until the fourth quarter, which is super impressive. But then, on the other side of the field, Hendon Hooker did not look like what we've been accustomed to this season from him.
Well, I think Hendon Hooker finally was he. This is I think I might have touched on this last week. He hasn't had a really hard away game, and people may shit on or hate on the Georgia crowd and all that. But at the end of the day, Georgia can have between 90 and 100,000 fans. That's a lot of people cheering for on your one side. That makes a lot of noise. So I think that definitely not having the crowd on his side and having to play against such a good defense, he was just not used to it. Just wasn't there yet. And I mean, still a great quarterback. They're going to do great in the Sugar Bowl, but
yeah, and then the other thing that we see from this game is that Hendon Hooker, he didn't play well, but it's kind of like what we said about Will Levis last week, is that he needed to look human 1 week, and this was definitely as human as Hendon Hooker will look. This is his floor, but I still think he's got a chance at the Heisman, especially if he really balls out in these last 3 games. You got South Carolina in Columbia, and then you've got Mizzou and Vandy at home. So Mizzou and Vandy at home is obviously going to be massive blowouts, but Tennessee's fate's not really in their hands. So what Hendon Hooker has to do is show everybody in the nation that he is the Heisman winner and that this team is for real.
Yeah, and I think to kind of go off topic here, I kind of think the SEC is kind of sealed at this point. We know who's going to be in the SEC championship game.
Okay.
It's going to be Georgia versus LSU, unless LSU completely fumbles the bag in these last. I think they play Arkansas and A&M. Now they're both away, but Arkansas and A&M are both having a lot of issues. And I mean, they should be able to, win out the rest of the year, win the West. And then same with Georgia. Neither team really faces too hard of a challenge the rest of the year. So I think we already know what we're going to see in Atlanta.
Yeah, and then we can move on to the Big Ten, where Ohio State beat Northwestern 21-7. And obviously, you're like, oh, Ohio State only beat Northwestern 21-7. Well, it was the weather. 40-mile-per-hour wind gusts, and the second half, it was raining cats and dogs.
Yeah, but with that being said, I understand the weather was bad for them, and I, hate to always hate on them, but I tend to be right. Where was their run game, really? I mean, you can't be one-dimensional in football. To be a successful football team, it'd be two-dimensional. It'd be able to run the ball and pass the ball, and it looked to me like they didn't really run the ball too well when I was watching.
Yeah, not really. Obviously, Mayan Williams, he did have 111 yards and 2 touchdowns, and he was kind of their sole source of offense because CJ, probably his lowest attempts of the year at 26, was 10 for 26 with only 76 passing yards. And I get that that's all about the weather, but you got to show a little bit more for me in the run game because you're going to face these. Obviously, a game like this doesn't happen often, but it's going to happen probably once a year. We see it.
Yeah.
We see it at least once a year for every team. They got to play that game in horrible conditions. It can't be shiny and 70 degrees outside. So, Marvin Harrison Jr. still looked good despite CJ Stroud having 76 passing yards, 5 receptions, 51 yards. And then Northwestern is Northwestern, so they did nothing at all. Except for Evan Hull with 122 on the ground and a touchdown. But, it was definitely, even with the weather, it probably shouldn't have been this close. I don't really get how Northwestern stayed in the game, but they did until pretty late.
Yeah, that was something I wanted to touch on. You kind of said, especially with being in the Big Ten, their weather up there is never. You get the weather up there is completely different than being in the South. I mean, you can get some rain down here, but like you never have to worry about playing in snow or any like terrible conditions. Maybe early in the season, hurricane type of weather, but you never really have to worry about anything too terrible to play in the South. But up north, they have snow. I mean, right there off being right there on that Great Lake right there in Chicago for Northwestern. You go there, you have to prepare just in case for a terrible storm to come through. And I have to agree, for them to be playing Northwestern, that game should have been at least one or two more touchdowns of a difference. I mean, they still played decent, but they did not look like anything too special to me. And I get you have your bad games, you have bad weather, there are all those excuses, but you should have been playing a little better than what they were playing. I was expecting at least just a tiny bit more.
Yeah, I agree. But I feel like nobody's really going to penalize them for this. I think that weather is just going to kind of blind everybody from this performance. But we'll move on to Clemson losing to Notre Dame, and this game was
the best game of the weekend, in my opinion. I
I
love praying on Dabo Swinney's downfall.
Yeah. There's nobody I hate more in college football than Dabo Swinney, because I've never seen somebody make a program more about themselves than Dabo Swinney. But,
dude, so much to say about him. But let's talk about the team.
Yeah, that one. If we started talking about Dabo, we might get into the 5-hour range. So
yeah.
Let's see. The first big note I've got is that Clemson season is over, and DJ in this offense doesn't impress anybody. There are no standouts that I see. I don't think that DJ is. I don't know if it's the offense that they're running or if it's DJ, but nothing about what he's done has impressed me. And then, people kept talking about Will Shipley. He is an average college running back. I don't see him making much of a career for himself. He might go in to the NFL and kind of be a second option, but I'm not impressed at all.
I have not been impressed by Clemson since probably their last national title. I mean, they have not done anything in the last few years to really just be like, oh, wow. I mean, to me, Clemson, I think something that Clemson fans need to realize is Dabo Swinney's not Nick Saban. He's not going to bring you national title every year. So they need to just accept seasons like this. And college football fans in general need to accept this. You'll have some great coaches, coach some great teams, have some good players, but not everybody's going to be Nick Saban and Alabama consistently bring them to titles. That being said, I have to agree that I don't know. DJ's never impressed me, and I don't know if it's because they're pulling a Jimbo Fisher and he wants to run the same exact offense he's always run and doesn't want to change it, and he needs to play it, set his offense up for his players. I don't know what the issue is, but something needs to be changed there for them to be successful. Because I mean, they have not looked good at all this season.
Yeah. I don't think that DJ is the answer, and I think this might be the beginning of the end for Clemson as kind of a dynasty, because yes, this Notre Dame team has made improvements, but they're definitely not a contender at all. They haven't been all season, but they have made jumps, and I think Marcus Freeman has to do with that. After I think after the Marshall loss, everybody just wrote off Marcus Freeman. They were like, oh, he'll be gone in a year. He'll be gone by the end of the season. But I do think that he has turned this around. And you got to expect that kind of start from a first-year head coach who, yeah, he was already with the team. But going from a coordinator to a head coach is a huge jump. It's a complete role change, and you can't expect everybody to get it in the first 3 weeks of the season. So you have to commend Marcus Freeman for turning this team around after a tough start and going and just kicking the hell out of Clemson.
I was definitely going to touch on that. Shout out to Notre Dame. They played a hell of a game. And like you said, they've really turned around since that Marshall loss. They've been looking better and better. And again, I agree with you. You can't expect a first-year head coach to take you to the playoffs. It takes time. It takes building the program. He's having to rebuild the program to his brand. He's no longer under the Brian Kelly brand. He's now the Marcus Freeman brand. So you have to brand your team for your coach. And he's gonna this year, next year, and honestly the third year is really gonna show as a coach what he wants in his program, how he's gonna play, how he's gonna be with the players, and then that's how he's gonna be. Either be a successful head coach or a not so successful head coach.
Yeah.
And I've said it last week, this week, I'll say it every week. People need to stop expecting a Nick Saban. No one is going to be your Lord and Savior, best football head coach of all time. You have to give them time to build their brand.
Yeah, for sure. And then let's go to the Michigan game, where there's not much to talk about here, but Michigan beat Rutgers 52-17, and I feel like really the only headline would be that Rutgers had the lead going into halftime, which I think caught the nation off guard.
Yeah, it caught me off guard.
Yeah, for sure. And so Michigan then comes out firing. They put up 28 in the third quarter, which is just ridiculous. And then it was over.
I do like that. Something I want to say about Michigan is I was not expecting to come out as fiery as they were. I was expecting them to come out with a win, but I was, expecting to be like 1-2 touchdowns. Not expecting 28 in the third. That was, I don't know. That's something that they've needed to work on, and I mean, here it proves it. I mean, yeah, Rutgers is not a top tier program. Whatever, they're lower tier Vanderbilt. They're the Vanderbilt of the Big Ten, but Michigan went into the locker room. They made the adjustments that need to be made, and they fixed what needed to be fixed. That's something that makes a championship program, is being able to go into halftime, whether you're up or down, see the issues, adjust to it, fix it, and then go back out the second half and be even more dominant.
Yeah, and you could probably attribute Michigan's first half struggles to having to just spend any time at all in Piscataway, New Jersey. I wouldn't wish that upon anybody, but yeah, that just sucks in itself. But coming back out in the second half and just kicking some ass is always going to make you look good. But we'll go on to the probably Georgia Tennessee was the biggest game of the week. LSU Alabama was the most exciting game of the week.
So to me, being a fan of an SEC West team, I was really looking to this LSU Alabama game because I watched the LSU and Ole Miss game, and I was like, wow, LSU looks drastically different than they do from week one. I mean, they look like a completely different team. They're finally started to play for one another, and they were looking like a much better team. And I was really excited for this game because Alabama's not been Alabama this year. And I've said it last week I think their penalties have been an issue. They're not as disciplined. But something this game I watched very closely, intently. I don't think Bill O'Brien needs to be there anymore.
No, I think he's got to get fired probably at the end of the season. I think, Nick Saban could probably chalk up this year and not worry about any drama mid-season. But yeah, as soon as they play the Orange Bowl or Citrus Bowl or whatever they're going to play in, once that game's over, Bill O'Brien's getting the boot. But let's see, Bama didn't record a touchdown until the fourth quarter and had 2 failed 2-point attempts, which is insane.
That is, I mean, if you look at the game, they went into overtime. They just kicked I understand why they were 2 points. I don't blame them. In that situation, I understand why. But I think Alabama knew they could probably score at will. So if they just kick those PATs kick those PATs, keep it just I think it would have been a 1 or 2 point lead, if I recall. And yeah, they could kick the field goal, get the lead. But if your offense was towards the end of the game, their offense wore that defense down, and they knew it. So why not kick the point after, get the 1 point, go up a score, go up 2 scores, or go up 2 points.
Yeah, exactly. And then your offense struggled all night, and then you get into the fourth quarter, you score a touchdown. That's like the only way that you can get your team back on their feet. And then what you do is you go for 2, you fail it, and your offense loses all of the confidence that they had after scoring that touchdown, and then you do it again. And it's like, okay, kick the PAT, at least the first one. At least
At
kick
least.
the first PAT and just let your offense have this touchdown that they just scored.
Yeah,
But then
that's
you just beat them into the ground by going for it again, and they still don't get it. Their confidence is at an all-time low.
yeah, and then you take it in overtime, and of course, I mean, that's a very hard play as a defender to try and defend against what LSU ran on the goal line for 2-point and OT. Their defense looked halfway decent, but right, like it says right here, there was 9 penalties for 92 yards, mostly on the defense, and you just can't have that.
Yeah, it was bad. But then, we kind of talked about it with Marcus Freeman, his former head coach, which is going to be Brian Kelly. He's fully turned this team around, and I don't think Brian Kelly's getting the recognition he deserves, not just from this game for the whole season, but in particular this game. Everybody just wants to talk about Bama not being the Bama that we're used to. But LSU won this game, and they did it by hitting Bama at their weak points and just kept on taking advantage of all of the mistakes that Bama's made. And we haven't seen every team do that this year, but it's obvious, Tennessee did it for sure. Tennessee kept it fast-paced, and the Alabama defense couldn't keep up. LSU did the exact same thing, and I think Brian Kelly deserves a lot of credit for this win.
Yeah, I mean, I've personally given Brian Kelly a lot of crap over the years. I've always called him overrated, all that. And I still deep down do not believe Brian Kelly can win a national championship. I do not think he's that clutch of a coach, but I do believe he'll be able to get them into positions to. Don't. I wonder how long he'll be at LSU for, if he's going to wait till he wins a title or what he's going to do. Because I think he can get him into position, but I just don't believe he's that clutch because he's been in the position with Notre Dame. He's had great players, and he could not win those big games. He won a few big games at Notre Dame, not like Alabama big, but some big games. And it's time to see if he can do that here at LSU. But it's very exciting to finally see these big teams like LSU, Ole Miss, Georgia, Tennessee back to being good again, because that's what makes college football exciting, when you have multiple good teams good playing each other. So then when you get to tail end of the schedule, all these games are actually important.
Yeah, I totally agree. And then and so that kind of rounds out the biggest games from this week. But let's look at a couple of the other games that happened this week that there's not too much to talk about with, but are still important to the scope. Which is going to be TCU remaining undefeated, beating Texas Tech 34-24. And I think this is kind of the worst we've seen TCU. They started out pretty bad, and Max Duggan, he didn't have an outstanding game like he has these last couple of weeks. But, no matter what you can say, TCU won, and they are undefeated.
Yeah, and I think that should say something for them come these rankings, which I have purposely not watched so you can get my live reaction. But TCU, I think their 2014 squad is still a better team than this one. Just gonna say it. I said it earlier. I don't think anybody can beat Georgia, so I think whoever ends up playing Georgia in the playoffs is gonna get smacked. TCU's good, but I don't think they're that good.
Yeah,
they'll make it a fun game for most of the game, but I think when fourth quarter comes, Georgia's going to prevail like they always do.
Yeah, and TCU, if they do sneak into 4, I have a feeling it'll be a little bit of week 1 for Georgia.
I have a feeling that anybody who sneaks in at number 4, it's going to be a fun week for Georgia.
Yeah, and then speaking of Georgia having fun, we'll go to this Oregon game. Oregon and Bo Nix are impressing the nation right now. They come off of that first loss, and everybody's like, "Oh, this isn't working. The Bo Nix experiment did not work. He's still the same guy." And then now it's week 10, and we're talking about Heisman watch for Bo Nix.
I definitely think something that I'm guilty of it too. You like to jump to conclusions very quickly, but with football players, it takes a while to build chemistry. Yeah, I think he transferred early this year. What was it, January? It could have been December. I don't remember exactly, but he really only gave himself 6-7 months to get prepared with these guys who've been playing with each other longer. And I think with each game, I mean, you learn a lot at practice, but you don't truly get to know someone until you're in the game day environment, until your back's against the wall and you need each other. And each week they have just looked better. He's looked better. He's gotten more, and he's really gotten very comfortable in the system. That's another thing. Is a quarterback has to be comfortable in their system, and he definitely has been. Each week, you can tell he's more and more comfortable with that offensive system out there at Oregon.
Yeah, but then you can't overlook the defensive struggles just across the board in the Pac-12, especially when you compare him to his years at Auburn, where he's facing SEC defenses that probably have like 5 guys on them that are going to be in the NFL next year. And so, he kind of gets away with his little, oh, there's pressure, let me run 10 yards back and then throw the ball 50 yards down the field. He kind of gets away with that in the Pac-12, but it's still impressive when he does it.
Oh, it's still very impressive. And I mean, it's kind of like I say about the Big 10, Big 12 as well. No one plays defense like the SEC does.
Yeah.
I mean, every year. I mean, I'm sure if you were to look into the NFL right now, the most players on every NFL squad is an SEC team, because, I mean, I said it last week, the biggest recruiting spot, especially for defense, are from the South. Atlanta, Georgia, Florida, Texas. The best defensive players come from there, and their hometowns here, so they stay here. So the defense here is much different than everywhere else. But it's just, I think I'm going to repeat myself again. I said it a few seconds ago. Georgia's just so dominant. I think anybody who plays them in the playoff is going to go in for a rude awakening after they played them.
Yeah, I agree. And then let's move on to this next game, which I only put in here because we talked so much shit about them last week. Number 16, Illinois, loses to a horrible Michigan State team. And we said it last week, and I feel like there's nothing else to say. Illinois should not have been ranked at number 16.
And much like we said, the reason they were 16 is because don't both Michigan and Ohio State have them left to play?
I believe so. Let me fact check that real quick. But go ahead and keep talking about that matchup.
Either one of those teams still has to play them. So they ranked them that high to give either Michigan or Ohio State or both of them. Oh, they beat a number 6, a top 15 team, a top 20 team, and that's why they ranked them there. And I mean, they were just doing it to help the big fish. I mean, it's like we kind of said last week about LSU. We thought. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I thought Alabama was going to go into Death Valley and embarrass LSU. I thought LSU was going to be on a high horse after beating Ole Miss, beating the rival, being a high horse there. And they showed up. They were confident, and they played with confidence. They played with poise, and I was impressed. And they beat the number 6 team, which is helping them. And I don't think the committee was expecting that when they ranked them that high.
Yeah, and so I'm looking at Illinois' remaining schedule. So they don't play Ohio State. They do have Michigan, not this coming week, but the week after. And that game will probably be big to see if Illinois makes it into the top 25 to finish the year. Right now they're 7-2, so they're making a bowl game. So top 25 doesn't really matter. But I do think it would be a big step for this program to make it into the top 25.
Yeah, to finish here in a top 25, that's a very big step for a program that hasn't been ranked in, I don't think, my lifetime. And I've been on this earth for, a while. And I cannot remember a single time I've ever been like, hey, go Illinois. I mean, the only Illinois fan I ever knew was from MASH. So.
And for anybody wondering, Brock said he's been on this earth for a long time, and he just said he watched MASH, but he is 19 years old. So we'll move on to the next one, which is this Oklahoma State team that just the wheels are falling off. They've lost 2 in a row now. Last week they get shut out. This week they lose to Kansas, who's kind of been sliding since that amazing start they had. They lose 37-16.
Hey, man. All I know from that game is Kansas is going bowling.
That's awesome. And Lance Leipold, I think I said it last week. Lance Leipold is going to get some money this offseason, whether that is staying in Kansas or, there's going to be some big schools that have coaching jobs open.
I mean,
Lance Leipold could be in Auburn, Alabama by January.
Yeah. He could be the next guy there. I mean, look what he's done there. Apparently, I've seen a lot of things. Not to completely switch here, but Hugh Freeze, they're really apparently looking into him. So we'll see that, but that's for another conversation another time. Yeah, Oklahoma State, that definitely. I was not expecting them to drop 2 in a row as badly as they have.
Yeah.
Kansas is a different team than they have been in the past. I mean, it's not like they lost to the usual 0-12 Kansas team. This is a decent Kansas team with a good coach, and he's got motivation behind the boys now. But Oklahoma State should not have lost, should not have been shut out at least last week. Yeah. And this game should have been a lot closer than what they had it. I don't know if it's Mike Gundy not getting the boys excited or what it is, but something's going on in there. Something's going on with that program right now, and he needs to get it fixed because they are a better program than how they've been playing.
Yeah, and in those first 6-7 weeks, people were saying that Spencer Sanders had a shot at the Heisman, and now it looks like he's got no chance. But yeah, I agree with you saying that Mike Gundy might need to do some changing, because I don't want to blame it on Mike Gundy because he's done a great job with this Oklahoma State team, and I know he cares. It's his alma mater. Of course he wants to do a great job there, but you gotta show your strengths on the field, and I feel like they don't do that. They fall flat on their face a lot.
Yeah, to me, it's like obviously he had a lot. He's been there for a long time, and he's had a lot of success there. But at what point do you kind of look like, okay, I've had a lot of success, but what can I look into and see what can I change to take us from being good to great?
Yeah, and no, go ahead.
Well, I was saying I just don't think he's done that. I think he can get the success and he can get there. I'm not saying he doesn't want to be great. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that. Everybody wants to be great, but it's like you're right here. You've been here for the last 10 years. Why can't you be here at the next level? I mean, you're right here, and you're so close to being at the next level. Why can't you get there? What are your issues? Why do you, like you said, why are you falling flat on these games that you should be winning? I mean, you have the athlete, you have the talent. I mean, he seems to have the coaches. He's a good coach himself. What are these issues? You need to find them, figure it out, and get it fixed.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm looking at it right now and just realized Spencer Sanders didn't play this past week. So they did start a freshman at quarterback, and I'm looking at their depth chart. So Spencer Sanders is a senior, and he's their starter. They have 3 freshmen backing him up.
Well, that makes sense.
So Garrett Rangel, not sure how to say that one, but he's the one that led them in this game, and he didn't have a bad game except for the turnovers. 3 interceptions, you're not going to win the game. So yeah, this Oklahoma State team's got to work on something, and I think the big thing is the defense. They give up a lot of points.
I mean, not to hit on the entire Big 12 conference again, but when you look at them, you don't think, oh, there's defense. You look at them, you go, oh, offense.
Yeah, okay. So, Brock, without looking, I want you to tell me what's the lowest points. Oh, well, actually, never mind. I was looking wrong. But the lowest points they've given up was to Arkansas Pine Bluff, which, first off, shout out Arkansas Pine Bluff. They have the best logo and some amazing merchandise. But Arkansas Pine Bluff, they only gave up 7 points. And then Arizona State, they only give up 17. After that, lowest is 25.
Also fired their head coach, I'm pretty sure, this year.
Yes, yeah, Arizona State fired.
Or they're kind of they're in a bit of a dumpster fire right now.
Yeah, but then when you look at, let's see, the last 5 weeks, the lowest they've given up is 31 to Texas Tech. And you've got to question that defense. And obviously, like you said, the Big 12 is not known for defense, obviously. But you're not going to get anywhere without one.
Yeah. I mean, I know I bring them up all the time, but look at the 2019 LSU squad. Greatest offense to ever play college football. Only one team comes to compare to that offense. That's 2020 Alabama. With that being said, that defense, it's really stepped up towards the end of the season in 2019 and really started playing to a much different level, and they started to win by even more. I mean, you look at the beginning of that 2019 season, yeah, they had the best offense ever, but their defense was ranked towards the end, towards the bottom end of the FBS. And they looked at it and said, "Hey, we can't win with a defense like this." And so they got in there's all the stories about the boys got together, got to talking, coaches, everything. And they started each week their defense progressively got better and better. And then by the end of the year, obviously, they went from being ranked very lower end FBS to upper middle tier. Not top defense, not middle of the road, but right in that in between that sweet spot area. And they went on to win the national championship, to nobody's surprise. But that defense stepping up definitely left no question in anybody's mind that they deserved to be the national champions. And all these teams now, all everybody cares about is scoring. That's what should get the fans, and that's what get bums in seats. What you need to be successful, and every coach knows this, is that all that matters, you got to have a good defense and a good offense. If you're both middle of the road, offense and defense, you'll go 8-4, have a great season, go to a nice little bowl. But a defense is a lot more important than what people think. Again, look at Georgia now. They're the best in the nation because Tennessee, I think, ranked like number one or like top 5 every offensive category. And Georgia made them look like they were a peewee football team when they stepped into Athens.
Yeah. And you definitely put up some great points there, is that, as much as people want to make fun of the saying, defense wins championships, and that is 100% true. And we saw it last year. We'll see it over and over and over again, that you can't win if you give up 45 points a game.
Yeah.
But let's move on to the NFL. I'm just going to quickly just go through some final scores and then come back and talk about a couple of the games that I really liked. So Eagles, Texans on Thursday night, 29-17. Noted the Texans helmets looked amazing.
Well, yeah, they definitely did.
Dude, that that super shiny red. Oh, dude, that was clean. But and then Chargers beat the Falcons 20-17. The only thing I really have here is Texas, former Texas kicker Cameron Dicker. Second game of the season for him, for his second team of the season in his rookie of the year. He's made 2 go-ahead game-winning field goals.
I mean, if you watch that game, you saw the Falcons blew it. They just pulled a Atlanta Falcons, stripped the ball, running down the field, and then they fumble it and give it right back to the Chargers.
Yeah, and it doesn't help that earlier Drake London just kind of stood there with a ball in his hands, and it just got ripped out.
So, I mean, there were a lot of errors there by the Falcons, but the Falcons are a decent surprise this year. Not expecting what we've been getting. They're really meshing and looking pretty good. I hope to see them do better because, they've been kind of a poverty ever since 2016. And they've gotten rid of a lot of things, and they're rebuilding. And I know Marcus Mariota is not going to be their quarterback in the next few years. They're going to draft a young guy. And I'm excited for their future.
Yeah, I agree. But let's move on to Lions-Packers. Lions upsetting the Packers 15-9. And I got to say, I've been watching a lot of Aaron Rodgers in my life. This had to be one of the worst games of his career. The 3 interceptions, 2 of them into the end zone. Like, this guy is just, it's not Aaron Rodgers. I refuse to believe it.
I don't know what he's done. Maybe it's his offseason doing all the different drugs he's been doing or what it is. But he just, back-to-back MVP winner, and now he looks like a bottom-tier quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah, no, there's nobody in the world could possibly say that he's even top 15 right now.
No, he just does not. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if he doesn't care anymore. If he's reached his peak in his mind and he's just gonna ride out this wave or whatever it is, but he's got to figure something out and got to figure it out quick.
Yeah, and then we talked about it a little bit last week. Is that the Packers still aren't going to utilize the run game? It's crazy. You have two running backs that are extremely successful running backs. AJ Dillon hasn't really had like that full opportunity to shine for like a whole season, but he can get you the run. You can get you the yards. He gets 11 carries. Your like $30 million running back got you 9 carries. That is ridiculous.
Yeah. Something here that it's an unpopular opinion, but I kind of think it's about time. I think it's about time the Packers and Rodgers, this is the end of their ride together. He's been there forever and all, but I think it's time for them. He still has a few more. I'm not saying he's done, but he's got a few years. He has, more than a few years left in him. They just need to trade him away, get some good draft picks for him, pick up a good quarterback, and kind of like reset their offense. Because he's still a great quarterback. He still has time left in him. I mean, hell, last year he was the MVP. Not saying anything against him, but to me, it kind of just looks like this. All they care about at the Packers organization is keeping Aaron Rodgers, and there's more to a football team than just a quarterback.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, as you said, they don't care about this run game because they want to keep Aaron Rodgers happy by letting him continue to throw the football.
Yeah, well, and it's not going to keep him happy if he keeps throwing it to the wrong team. But
yeah.
And that'll get into how the Lions defense looks pretty promising for the future. A lot of young guys on that defense that really stood out. Obviously, Aiden Hutchinson getting his first and probably first of very few interceptions.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he's an end.
Yeah,
you don't get that too often.
Nevertheless, it is impressive.
Oh yeah.
So congrats to the rookie. But yeah, we'll move on because I don't want to talk about that game anymore. It sucked. But the Dolphins barely escaping the Bears, and the biggest thing, and I believe we talked about it yesterday, that this Bears team doesn't have the right offense for Justin Fields, and now it looks like they've changed everything because you got Fields getting I think he had 170 in the air, 170 on the ground, getting the touchdowns. He looked really good with this offense. It just happens that the Bears traded away every defensive weapon they had, so they lost.
Yeah, I don't know what that was about. I guess they're trying to I guess they see a couple people they want in this upcoming draft or the next few years, but I agree they should not. I think it's very good to see the Bears finally understanding, hey, maybe we should work for our players instead of working against them. Because I mean, I hate to bring about college football, but to use Jimbo Fisher as an example, you can get all the 5-star athletes in the world, but if you don't use a playbook that utilizes their skills, it's a waste of talent.
Yeah, it is. And I think there is a team that knows how to run their offense, and it's the Dolphins. And Tua, Tyreek, and Jalen Waddle are just ridiculous. Tua had 302 in the air with 3 touchdowns. Tyreek 7 receptions, 143, 1 touchdown, and then Waddle has 5 receptions, 85 yards and a touchdown. And I'm going to go ahead. I'm staking my claim. This quarterback and 2 wide receivers is the best in the NFL.
I mean, very few people can go against that right now. I'm trying to think.
I think the only contenders are going to be Josh Allen with Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one too. But I mean, I have to agree. They're each week they're just putting up some crazy statistics together, and they're looking like they're playing fun, having fun, and just looking good. Some of the Dolphins, I mean, they have a pretty decent run game. They have, I mean, when your both receivers are usually averaging over 100 yards a game, sometimes up in the 2. I mean, you don't really need to run the ball too much when you're doing that, but
Yeah, and then they still had success on the ground because they've got two pretty solid running backs with Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson Jr., who's their new acquisition. And this offense looks extremely well rounded, but I don't see them making much of a run into the playoffs with this defense.
Yeah, that was something else I was about to touch on. I say it about every team. Defense wins championships in every sport. You got to have a defense that complements your offense.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
if you're a score fast offense, you know that anytime you get the ball in your hand, you're going to be able to get down the field and get at least 3 points. All right, then you need a defense. You just got to get a couple good players on your defense. Really for something like that, you got to have a really good linebacker, one amazing linebacker. Your defensive line has to be, at least mediocre, and some pretty good safeties. But if you have that way, you can, you're going to get the stops when they're needed. They just got to, figure something out on their defense.
Yeah, but another team that we're gonna move on to that is kind of in a similar situation where they have a great offense. It's just the defense is the question mark, and that's the Bengals. They beat the Panthers 42-21, and Joe Mixon had the game of all games. 5 total touchdowns. He looked insanely good, and I am happy to have him on my fantasy team.
Yeah, I'm kind of pissed. I traded him away because I needed a couple other players to fill up my roster. I mean, it's been working out for me, but I'm really mad I got rid of him. And this was earlier in the season. But looking back, hindsight's 2020.
Yeah, but it is not often that we see a 5 touchdown game. But the other side of the field, Baker makes his return, and to probably everybody's surprise, he didn't turn the ball over.
Yeah, that was very surprising. You see Baker in the game, you're expecting at least a few. Something with this Panthers team that gets me mad is they drafted a quarterback in the second round, Matt Corral, who, he could have possibly not. I'm not saying he's the answer for them, but he could have possibly been a better quarterback than Baker, Sam Darnold. He could have been better than them. They could have put him in there. He could have been there for a few years to get them winning again. And then, but what they did in the preseason is they had him against the 4th string O line and got him hurt. That was with Matt Rule, and I mean, not to completely hate on Matt Rule more than I have before, but he made a lot of dumb decisions that you can tell it's kind of costing the Panthers. And I think at this point they just want to just basically lose out, get a couple good draft picks, and pick up some good players.
Yeah. But we'll move on to Patriots Colts. Patriots just kicked the hell out of the Colts, 26-3. And I feel like the only thing to really talk about here is that Sam Ehlinger was sacked 9 times for 60 yards and threw a pick 6. So he is struggling, and the Colts decided to do something about it. I think it was yesterday. Maybe it was this morning. I think it was yesterday morning. Firing Frank Reich. It probably needed to happen at this point.
I agree. Definitely needed to happen. I believe it was last year or the year before they had a lot of success, looking pretty good. And then this year, they looked like they were having a promising future, and then all of a sudden they just face plant. They step on a rake and get hit in the face. Like, what is going on with them?
Yeah. Let's move on. Oh, sorry. No, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, there's so many things you can say about them, but I hope they find someone to fix their situation because they got some good players. And I kind of like watching the Colts be good.
Yeah, no, I agree. They've got players that I want to see do well. Jonathan Taylor, Pittman. They've got a good group of guys that are very entertaining to watch. And just right now, that team's just struggling.
Yeah.
But we'll move on to I'd probably say the biggest upset of the week. I didn't look at any spreads or anything, but the Jets upsetting the Bills. First off, I watched the opening kickoff of this game and it was hilarious. It was raining a little bit at MetLife Stadium, and the Jets kicker just slipped and spiked the ball into the ground, and it went right to the Bills. So the Bills started off on the 50 or 40 yard line, and then they get it to the red zone, and Josh Allen throws a pick, and like it was like that play was designed to go to that Jets player.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I mean, I said this earlier. Everybody, every team, every player, everybody has their bad games, and hopefully for the Bills, this is their bad game. Because the Jets they're a good team, but they're not a team they should have been this close with, really.
yeah. And I will say the Jets are definitely on the come up. They've drafted very well over these past couple of years, and they've really built something that could probably be sustainable. I don't think that Zach Wilson is going to be the guy that leads them, into maybe winning this division in probably the next couple of years, but he is serviceable at the moment. When Zach Wilson's not throwing picks, when he's not forcing this offense to do something, the Jets play well. When Zach Wilson kind of tries to take the game into his own hands and starts pulling some random stuff that he doesn't need to do, that's when things get out of hand. And I think he just needs to focus on let the defense get on the field. It's okay to punt here and there. Don't just give him the ball.
Yeah, I think he's a young guy. He still has a lot of learning to do, a lot of maturing to do when it comes to just the game in general. I agree with you. It's okay to allow the punt team to come out and let the defense go on, especially when if you trust your defense, because you just can't. Because what screws you over is when you try to force something, you throw a pick and they get it, and they return it to your red zone. They turn to your side of the field. Those are things you cannot give up. Just calm down and just let it happen.
Yeah, and then another young guy that is really showing off on this team is Sauce Gardner. He got another interception today, and I feel like he's probably the front runner for defensive rookie of the year.
Yeah, I agree. I'm trying to think of some of the other rookies. I think he's just performed the best so far.
Yeah, you've got I can't remember the guy's name out in Seattle on defense. I believe he's a safety, and then you also have Brisker with the Bears, who's been playing really well. But yeah, I think Sauce Gardner is definitely the front runner.
I agree, and I mean he also has a lot of ESPN and the other sports outlets behind him. So usually when you have that much, when they're starting loving you that much, that's usually when you tend to get the award because it will get them more coverage or whatever. But
yeah, and then there's one more thing about this game, and it's that, and we talked about it in some of the college football games, is that Josh Allen looked human. It's crazy when we think of Josh Allen as like this superhuman player that he doesn't make mistakes, he throws bombs. He didn't play well in the passing game. Obviously, you can. For some reason, he's just the best runner. He's got 86. He got 86 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. One of those rushing touchdowns was like a 35-yarder, I think. And it's crazy how this looks like a bad game, and he's still impressed.
Yeah, I mean it's hard to be a superhuman every single game, and that's something like I was saying it earlier that people forget is you got to let. I mean, at the end of the day, these are, like you said, are just humans.
Yeah.
You just got to let, there are going to be those games where they don't play to their full potential, whether it be, an assortment of reasons. Shit happens, and they're going to have not the best game, and you just got to adjust to that. Well, what I was going to say is, like, the people that when they don't play to the best of their abilities or whatever, kind of like with Alabama not being undefeated right now, you cannot just go ahead and start criticizing them and hating them, saying they're terrible, this, that, the other. You just got to understand, shit happens, and you need to just let it happen and move on. Okay, shit's going to happen, and they're going to try to their best to adjust it and fix it.
Yeah, so now we'll move on to Vikings Commanders. The Vikings narrowly escaped the Commanders 20-17, and I feel like the big headline here is that the Vikings overcame 10-point deficit in the fourth. They scored 13 unanswered, and they finally looked really good in the fourth quarter. This Vikings team is weird. They've lost one game. It's to the undefeated Eagles, and I still don't feel like they're really a contender in the NFC.
Yeah, I mean, that shit. You got to win the fourth quarter.
Yep.
When you look at football, I mean, yeah, I mean, a full game's important, but when it comes to the end, you have to win the fourth quarter to win a football game. That's something they got to work on. I don't know too much about them. I've been paying a little bit of attention, but not too much. But I definitely think there's a lot of room for improvement there.
Yeah, and then we saw Kirk Cousins on the plane. That's the funniest thing ever.
I think just because of him transforming, they should just win it all. But
Yeah, because like we saw him when he was in Washington, he was like the weird guy and like yelling at people about like, yeah, you like that, like all this stuff, and then gets to Minnesota and everybody just kind of forgets that he exists for a little while. Because now, Stephen A. Smith and people like that are just calling Kirk Cousins is like a term for average quarterback. So seeing Kirk Cousins shirtless on the plane with all the chains on is this like it's this weird like alter ego that we've never seen from Kirk Cousins.
yeah, it's kind of like when your dad tries to be young again.
Yes,
That's like
exactly.
the vibe I get from it.
Yeah, except like Kirk Cousins is just sneakily ripped.
Yeah, he's an
But
athlete, man.
yeah, that's as much as I want to talk about Kirk Cousins. So we'll move on to the Jags beating the Raiders. Boring. Every Raiders game this season is going to be boring outside of when the ball goes to Davante Adams. So one thing I do want to say about this Jags offense is Travis Etienne is forming into a great running back.
Yeah.
Like he looks so good on the field, and it could be in part to him and Trevor are obviously very familiar with each other, playing at Clemson together, but I feel like Travis is at Clemson he was a great running back for sure, but he was almost outshined in that offense by Trevor Lawrence. In Jacksonville, Doug Peterson seems to be wanting to go run first, and so Etienne's kind of taking the upper hand on Trevor now, and we don't see as much from Trevor, and I think Etienne by probably the end of this year or next year is going to be a top 10, maybe even top 5 running back in the league.
Yeah, I mean he's looking really good. I'm really it's kind of I like seeing the Jags do good just because I like Yellen Duval.
Yeah.
That Evan Ingram's on that team. He had a great rookie year with the Giants, and then he kind of fell off. He's looking a little better this year. I mean, not a top tier tight end or anything, but looking much better. That team down there is looking a lot better than they have in the past. It's always nice to see a team that's been having a few bad seasons look good again.
Yeah, well, and it helps that your coach isn't Urban Meyer anymore.
Yeah, it really helps when you don't have Urban Cryer as your head coach.
Yeah, but we'll move on to Seahawks-Cardinals. Seahawks beating the Cardinals 31-21, and I have 0 notes about this game because as much as you would think that a game where 52 points were scored would be eventful, it wasn't really. Kenneth Walker had a great game again. I think he is personally my offensive rookie of the year. The only person rivaling him is Dameon Pierce in my book. But Kyler Murray still doesn't look great. Obviously, D-Hop adds an intensity to this offense that definitely could scare some teams, but it doesn't seem to be doing anything.
I think we got into this last week when it came to the Cardinals. Cliff Kingsbury didn't really do anything when I believe he was at Texas Tech beforehand.
Yep.
Had a bunch of mediocre seasons, if not losing seasons. Goes to the NFL, has one bad year, goes 8-8, then takes him to I believe he took him to the playoffs, whatever. Yep. And then this year again, just kind of. I personally don't think Kyler Murray is the answer for them at quarterback. But then again, I've never really been the biggest Kyler Murray fan. He's a good quarterback, do not get me wrong. But I just don't know if he's the guy. And, he still has a few more years to prove a lot. But they got to figure something out there because they have a lot of good players. And they're not really doing anything with it.
Yeah, I'm sure the Oakland Athletics would gladly have him back.
Oh, yeah. Well, they're about to go to Las Vegas. So, I mean, he'll be right there.
Yeah, and then the other 4 o'clock slate game that I wanted to talk about is Bucks Rams. This game was like the epitome of a Tom Brady game um, as of this year because their offense looked so bad all game. Both teams did, really. And both of these teams suck this year.
Yeah, and last year they were the front runners, and I mean the Rams won the Super Bowl last year.
Yeah,
So
and the Bucks the year before. So you would think that this game would mean a lot more. Yeah, the Bucks end up taking the lead in the division with a losing record. You know what? The NFC South is sad this year. Really, that's all I've
very,
got. But I do want to kind of get into this detailed winning drive because the Rams screwed themselves. So the Bucks get the ball with 54 on the clock on their own 40, and then Brady drives them quickly down the field. They get to the Rams 7-yard line. Rams commit a pass interference, puts Bucks on the one with a couple seconds on the clock, and of course Tom Brady passes for a touchdown, and they win the game. But the Rams lost this game when they came out in a prevent defense with 54 seconds on the clock when neither team had a timeout left.
yeah,
Like, you easily could have gotten an early stop and the game would have been done. But you come out in prevent defense, you let Tom Brady throw under your offense. Of course, they're going to gain yards. He's going to run up and spike. You let this happen. If
yeah.
you would have. Oh, go ahead.
No, I'll let you finish your statement.
Yeah, like if you would have just stopped them, even in field goal range, it didn't matter because you were up by 4.
Yeah, that's something that I just don't understand, and they do it at every level, from Pee Wee all the way to the pros. Why do people get so safe so quickly? Play aggressive the whole game. I understand if it's you're playing prevent defense because they're able to pass it down, throw 40 yards every time or something. But I mean, if you're stopping them pretty well all game, why are you changing your defense? Why fix something that's not broken? I mean,
Yeah.
there are so many football games I can bring up where people just got complacent at the beginning of the fourth quarter. They stopped doing what was working, started running the ball, and then built up momentum for the other team. They came back and won.
Yeah,
Don't
well, and like, why were the Rams concerned about the Bucks trying to burn them if they set up in a normal defense when they couldn't do it all game? Like,
yeah.
what is the point in just letting Tom Brady have easy passes when he couldn't throw downfield for the entire the first 4 quarters, really, except for this last minute?
And I think something that, like, especially when you switch to prevent like that doesn't show a lot of confidence in your defense, even though they were performing at a great level. I don't know if they were performing at an amazing level or just the Bucks offense was just being bad that game or what it was. But when they're performing as well as they were performing, why fix it? That shows then when you change it up like that, that shows you have little confidence in not only those players you switched around, but just the defense as a whole.
Yeah,
And that's not something you want as a coach. You don't want to demoralize your team like that.
It really confuses me, and I know, like, Sean McVay, and I'll still say it, I don't even care that they only put up 13 points and they lost to the Bucks. Sean McVay is still one of the best coaches in the league.
Definitely.
Just because this team sucks, it's not his fault. But Sean McVay loves to do this little thing where he just jokes around about, like, oh, I might not be here next year. I might retire, like, all this stuff. I kind of think he might retire after this year, just for fun.
Yeah. I mean,
he hasn't been coaching that long. He's been to 2 Super Bowls. He's won once. Who cares? You got your money. Get out.
And that, that kind of goes back to, what do you want to be doing? You'll get bored, whatever. But, like, it's kind of like with Ed Orgeron down at LSU. After he won his national title, he gave up. It's not fair for you as the head coach, especially as the head coach, to just basically give up and just say, hey, you know what? I'll try on game days, but during practice, y'all do whatever. Or, I'll be there or I won't be there. I'll let whoever do. If you're the head coach, you have to be fully involved every single day. You have to you just cannot give anything up. You have to be as strict as you were day one. You have to, show them who's boss. Cannot give up on your team like that because then they will not play well. Again, using LSU 2020, 2021 at Orgeron. He stopped. I just heard rumors and all the stories from there. They said he just kind of stopped coaching. He's coached a little, but he just kind of didn't care anymore because he reached his pinnacle. Now, is Sean McVay, has he done the same thing? Who knows?
Yeah, and I will say that the second he retires, he's getting a TV job because the guy knows how to read the field, and I got a feeling that he'll be definitely like a Romo type in the booth, or even just like doing halftime show, pregame show stuff. But no, he's a great analyst of the game. It's just about, is it worth sitting around in the NFL when you've already kind of reached the pinnacle? I'm pretty sure he's won Coach of the Year now. He's won a Super Bowl. What else is there for him to do?
Yeah, and I agree with you. I mean, me personally, I would want to stay in coaching as long as I possibly can. But like, for some of these guys, like once you reach, I mean, obviously, I have not reached my pinnacle. I said many years before I get there. But I can't imagine after me reaching my pinnacle wanting to just stay there. Because I, like to reach my goal and then set another goal even higher and I have to attain that and keep attaining it. So, I mean, it's different for every person. But if he has reached his pinnacle and he's done, then to be fair to his team, his fans, everybody, he should just go ahead and retire then.
Yeah. And then let's go ahead and get into this last game, which was Monday Night Football. Chiefs, Titans. Chiefs win. Or sorry, was this Sunday night? This was Sunday Night Football.
Yeah, I believe so.
But so the Chiefs beat the Titans 20-17 in overtime, and the crazy stat from this, outside of what happened in the game, is that this was the fourth 20-17 final of the day, and all of these games finished with a go-ahead game-winning field goal.
Crazy.
Like, that is the weirdest thing ever, because normally, like, it's a different score in every single game across the slate. So seeing four of them with the exact same final score, and they all finished the same way, outside of the Chiefs and Titans going into overtime.
Yeah, man, the simulation must have been broken or something.
Yeah, that was a weird one. And then, of course, Patrick Mahomes kind of did his thing. He did all the work for the Chiefs. They were down 17-9. 14-yard rushing touchdown, and then runs it in himself for the 2-point conversion to tie it up. They go to overtime. Chiefs come out, kick a field goal, and then the game is on rookie and I believe second game started for Malik Willis. And this is kind of the first time he's been forced to throw the ball, and it did not work out. He got sacked 2 plays in a row for 17-yard loss, and they just had to turn over on downs. So I think Malik Willis can be good. Obviously, it's his second game, so nobody can really say anything. But it sure did not look great today.
I mean, something we have to remember, I mean, you said he's a rookie. He's got a lot of learning ahead of him. It takes you a while to get adjusted to college football. Now he's having to get adjusted. Now that he's back in the NFL, even more high pace, even harder place to get adjusted to. It's going to take him a little bit to get adjusted. I think he's got a pretty good future ahead of him, but they definitely need to play him more. Be a little, they were very conservative with running the ball, but they need to give him a little more passing so he can get a little more comfortable in that in his passing game. Something that the Titans did, I commented on before, that was stupid. Don't know why they get rid of A.J. Brown, especially if they knew they were going to get a young quarterback. Why get rid of a top 5 wide receiver in the league? Doesn't make any sense to me. And now their offense is hurting from it.
Yeah, and of course, Derrick Henry's just going to do his thing. It is his time. Once November hits, really late October, Derrick Henry really just turns it up. And, you can't run a successful offense or even a Super Bowl contending offense if all you can do is run the ball. We talk about it all the time with teams that are one-dimensional, but it's normally in the passing game. We talked about it earlier with Ohio State and college football. there's a couple teams in the NFL where it's all passing game and it just doesn't work. But with the run game, it's even worse because you put yourself in situations where, oh shoot, Derrick Henry has 30 carries and the clock is running out. Like they're not giving themselves enough time to score, and then it puts Malik Willis in a bad situation, and everything falls apart from there.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. They're definitely very one-dimensional up there. I mean, you have Derrick Henry. It's hard not to be one-dimensional because he's a freaking semi-truck.
Yeah.
I mean, I would personally not want to be the linebacker having to fill the gap against the dang freight train coming through the hole. But yes, I agree with you. You cannot be one-dimensional running. And I mean, the best part about being one-dimensional running is running the ball does set up for passing the ball. You know, those play actions, you know, helps open up the passing game a lot more than a team who's one-dimensional passing, trying to get to run the ball.
Yeah. And then the last game, Monday Night Football, Ravens Saints. This game kind of sucked. Lamar Jackson threw his 100th career passing touchdown, so congrats to him for that. But yeah, the lead receiver for Baltimore was Isaiah Likely. He had one reception, 24 yards, and a touchdown. So yeah, this game was boring. I never want to watch Andy Dalton play football, and definitely not on prime time. I'd like to avoid it at all costs. Alvin Kamara still just I don't know what's going on. Maybe it's the lawsuit with him beating the guy up. It's kind of got in his head or something. But 9 carries, 30 yards. I don't know what's going on in New Orleans.
Yeah, I mean, it goes to the entire NFC South. We expect this behavior from the Falcons and the Panthers, but the Saints, especially the last 10 years, I understand their coach finally retired and or stepped away from the game, whatever. And they just didn't really. I mean, they lost Drew Brees, they lost their coach, and they don't really have their identity anymore. It's time for them to pick up a quarterback and fix everything because they still have so many good players. They can be a great team. They just have a few things they need to fix. And I think they'll definitely get that fixed here soon.
Yeah, and so now I want to move over to something that we talked about last week a lot, which was the college football playoff ranking. Of course, we're recording now just after it came out, but Brock has not seen it yet. So I'm sending him the picture of the rankings right now. But in the meantime, I do want to talk about our projected top 10s, which we posted on some of our social media accounts. So we'll start off with mine top 10, going 10-1. I had Ole Miss at 10, Alabama coming in at 9, USC at 8, and then 7 LSU, 6 Oregon, 5 TCU, 4 Tennessee, 3 Michigan, 2 Ohio State, and number 1 Georgia. And then Brock, if you want to read off your top 10.
My top 10, starting from 10 going to 1, is Ole Miss at number 10, UCLA at 9, USC at 8, Oregon at 7, LSU at 6, Michigan at 5, Tennessee at 4, TCU at 3, Ohio State at 2, and your reigning national champions, Georgia, at number 1.
And then have you been able to open up that picture I sent?
Yeah, I got it pulled up.
So I'll just quickly walk through the like 11 to 25. So 25 Washington, 24 Kentucky. I don't think I expected to see Kentucky this low at this point in the season. I thought they'd be a little bit more of a contender, but a rough game against Missouri last week, and obviously that horrible loss to Tennessee the week before. But yeah, I think Will Levis needs to turn it up. I'm not sure what year he's in. I believe he's a junior. Obviously he can go out now and probably still be a first-round pick because of this quarterback draft.
Yeah, they're putting him at number 2 in his QB class. So
yeah, it's crazy. But we'll move on from that. 23, my Florida State Seminoles. I'm super happy about that. I didn't watch very much of the LSU Alabama game because I was watching my Noles beat the living shit out of Miami. So we'll move on. Staying in the state of Florida, UCF comes in at number 22. And like we said last week, you can put one of the big group of 5 schools there, and nobody's going to say anything because they have no clue how that team is doing. But UCF is playing pretty well.
Yes.
And then
Gus Malzahn.
Yeah, and then for some reason we've just decided in the last week that we absolutely hate Illinois, and they come in at 21.
Well, I don't hate them. Don't get me wrong. I like them. They're a respectable program. But when you last 7 years you've gone, your best season's been a 5 and a 7. We got to take a step back here. All right, you're having some success. Okay, some of these teams you're playing have some down year. Let's not get too excited here. I do agree they should be in the top 25. 21 is where they should have been to start.
Yeah, they should have been 21 last week.
That's what I'm saying. They should never have been above 20.
Yeah.
Good program, but they don't have too many great athletes to keep them there. They got to have a few more good recruiting classes to get in there.
Yeah, I agree. But we'll move on. Number 20, Notre Dame. Obviously, they had that big win against Clemson and the big turnaround that we talked about earlier. Coming in at 20, it's pretty solid. Though they are 6-3, it's a big win when you play. Maybe they were a fraud where Clemson was ranked last week, but nonetheless, They beat a top 5 team. So you're obviously going to get rewarded for that.
I think they're the best 6-3 team, personally.
Yeah, no, I agree. When it comes to the 6-3s, I believe Texas is 6-3.
Texas, Kansas State, just in the top
Florida
25
State.
right here. Florida State, Kentucky.
So we'll move on from Kansas State. Texas, the team we just mentioned, coming in at 18. They're making a climb. It seems like Quinn is now like officially and fully back, and the offense is really good. And I really do think that Texas has an interesting route to moving up into that top half of the rankings by the end of the year.
I believe Texas playing TCU this weekend. That's going to be a game. I'm not going to lie. I'm not feeling too confident for TCU. Do we know where it's being played?
In Austin.
I would not be surprised if TCU ends up losing that game to Texas in Austin. Texas right now, a lot of energy behind them, intimidating environment. They have over 100,000 people that can sit in that stadium. So we'll see. We'll see when that game comes. I understand why College Game Day is going there now, because that's gonna be a heck of a game.
Yeah, for sure, and it has big implications on the college football playoff, because if we see TCU fall, that means that it's kind of going to be a race between Tennessee can't really do much to get up, but we're still not there. So I want to talk about that once we get to TCU. But 17 Tulane, a team that we talked about last week, and we're like, why are they here? And then we realized why they're here, and they keep impressing. So big ups to Tulane getting in at 17. And then NC State coming in at 16. I don't really get it. NC State, they're not bad. They're not good. Like, I guess 16 is okay. I'm not impressed with NC State. They did beat Florida State. Nothing fantastic about this team.
Yeah, I'm about to put a lot of shade on the ACC here. I mean, it's not like I do for every conference, so I'm not really impressed by any ACC team. That not a single one's done anything to surprise, anything big this year for me. They've all just kind of looked, good. They'll be good in bowl games, but it was very quickly into the season I realized there's going to be no ACC team in the playoff unless Clemson, of course, goes undefeated.
Yeah, which is obviously over. Okay, I'm going to sound biased because I am a Florida State fan, but I think Florida State this year has impressed compared to what we've seen these last couple of years of just horrible teams. This Florida State team is way overplaying where anybody expected them to be.
They're definitely on the up and up again. They're getting the good recruits. I mean, a lot of people don't like him, and I don't know if he'll be there for, another 10 years or how long he'll be there, but he'll be there for at least a little while. Mike Norvell's doing a good job getting some recruits in there, playing well. I do believe he still coaches like a small time group of five coach. He personally has a lot of progress to be made as a coach, I believe, if he wants to stay at Florida State. But I mean, when it comes to recruiting and playing most games, he's looking pretty well or pretty good. And I believe Florida State's gonna be pretty good here the next few years. I'm
Yeah,
expecting in the next year 8-4. I'm hoping for them next year. So we'll just keep seeing as they progress.
yeah, for sure. And we'll kind of get going on these next couple teams. So North Carolina coming in at 15. Obviously, they're going to win their division in the conference. Most likely, it'll be them versus Clemson in the ACC championship. It'll probably be like a play to see who plays in the Duke's Mayo Bowl. But yeah, that game's going to be insignificant for the first time in kind of a little while. You know, normally Clemson is up there, and normally that game means a little bit. But yeah, it'll be pretty useless this year. Number 14, Penn State. They stayed right where they were last week, and once again, I'm still not impressed by them.
Yeah, there's nothing really impressive there at Penn State. Can't win against a ranked team. They'll end up going to a decent bowl game. I mean, I really hope they don't make a. I This is gonna sound mean, but I don't want them to make a big New Year's Six game. I just don't think they deserve it. I think there are other
Yeah,
better teams. I'd rather see Tulane or UCF go to New Year's Six over them. I
yeah,
don't usually
agreed.
say that.
Yeah, Adrian Martinez, or sorry, not Adrian Martinez. I'm thinking of a different old quarterback in college football, Sean Clifford. Um, it's not exciting. The run game is lackluster, and there's not a single player on this Penn State team where I'm like, wow, I really want to see him play. So, also, I don't like James Franklin. He bothers me.
I like him in the sense of it's really nice that they are finally that like it's really nice for me to see that colleges are adding on those 10 plus year extensions and all for coaches because I said it last week. I hate the constant turnover in college football, the constant oh he didn't win this year so we're gonna fire him even though he had two good seasons before. You're gonna have your ups and downs. So I want him to do good, but I think when you look at the Big Ten, the best two teams are going to be Michigan and Ohio State every single year, and I don't think that's going to change ever.
Yeah, I agree. But we'll move on. Number 13, Utah. Yeah, I get it. Utah is they're a good team. Obviously the loss to Florida in week 1 kind of threw their entire season off the rails, but they've had some impressive wins. And we talked about it last week. Utah is one of the hardest places to play. And they've definitely gotten themselves into a situation where they could end up messing a lot of things up, especially if they, I believe they play Oregon, and that'll kind of throw things off for the rest of the season. Really, yeah, they play Oregon week 12, and that game could shake some things up.
Yeah, I definitely think has USC and UCLA played Utah yet, or are they even on the?
USC played them, and Utah won. I'm not too sure if they're playing UCLA.
I don't know how the Pac-12 does their divisions and all that crap, but
Okay,
I
so
do
actually
know.
they played UCLA the week before USC. They lost to UCLA 42-32. So their only two losses is that first week against Florida and then UCLA.
Yeah, and I don't really think for the Pac-12, I don't. I think it kind of goes for like some of these other conferences. I say some of these Group of Five teams. They don't really play too many teams. Then they finally do play a good team, get beat, and then that's kind of how it goes for them. So they're ranking them higher so they can try getting the Pac-12 team into the Final Four or into the top four. We'll see. I don't really see too much from US. I mean, USC, in my opinion, honestly, USC is the best in the Pac-12. They're going to win the Pac-12 championship. I don't think anybody out there is going to be able to oppose them too much. But
Sir,
if
you're
you
wrong.
really,
Yes, you're wrong. Oregon is the best team in the Pac-12.
oh, I completely forgot about Oregon. I was just on to those two teams. So, Oregon by far is the best team in the Pac-12. Yeah. Sorry, I completely forgot about them.
All right.
Yeah, definitely it's going to be Oregon in there winning, and they're going to sneak in and get beat by Georgia again.
Ooh, I like that take. But number 11, Ole Miss, and I think Ole Miss got screwed only because they had a bye week in the most crazy week possible. They had a bye week, and it kind of screwed them over. They could definitely be in the top 10.
I believe I don't. This just goes because I'm not a fan of Clemson. I don't think Clemson should still be in the top 10,
No, me neither.
and I honestly don't think Alabama should be in the top 10 either. I mean, I know in my rankings I still had them in there, but
No, you didn't.
I didn't.
No, you didn't. You had UCLA at 9. No Alabama, no Clemson in your top 10.
Yeah, I'd rather have these Pac-12 teams in there over Alabama and Clemson. I understand Alabama only losses are to two top 10 teams, so I understand why they're still in there. So maybe a 10 spot for them. But Clemson certainly, they don't belong there. They didn't do anything impressive all year. I know they're only a one-loss Clemson team, but they don't deserve to be in the top 10. They're not good enough.
Yeah, well,
And
and you put Clemson at 10. Obviously, that's the next one we'd get to is Clemson at 10. And what you're doing there is saying that Clemson at 8-1 with a loss to Notre Dame is better than Ole Miss at 8-1 with a loss to LSU. It doesn't make sense that they put Clemson over Ole Miss.
now here's a game I want to see. If Ole Miss can win out here, we're looking at Ole Miss versus Clemson in the Orange Bowl. That's going to be a hell of a game.
Oh, yes. I like that.
So I think everybody in the nation needs to root for Ole Miss to beat Bama. I mean, everybody's going to because nobody likes Bama. But if Ole Miss can win out, we're gonna have one heck of a Orange Bowl. Looking at because I'm assuming Clemson's gonna win out. A Clemson versus Ole Miss Orange Bowl would be a great game.
Yeah. I don't know how safe it is to assume that Clemson wins out. Obviously, their schedule doesn't look crazy, but, everybody kind of checked off Notre Dame as a win. But we'll move on. Number 9, Alabama. Yeah, I think that's where they should be, honestly. I get that they have 2 losses. So does LSU. Alabama's losses happen to be to 2 top 10 teams. LSU's losses happen to be to one of the same teams as Alabama, and then number 23, Florida State. So I don't think Alabama looks as bad as... Sorry. They look much worse than their ranking, and they play pretty much right where they're ranked.
Yeah. I mean, and something that people kind of forget is their 2 losses. It's not like they got blown out. It went to the very, very, very end. They literally had to go in overtime for one of their losses. So it's not like they lost badly. It was a very close game. I mean, game that they could have won if they didn't make some mistakes. So I do like their rank still in top 10, but they do have 2 losses, and it's hard to say like a 8-1 UCLA. It's a whole thing. Whatever. Let's move on.
All right. Yeah. So we'll go to USC at number 8. I think that's right where they should be. Nothing about them makes me want to argue for them to be higher, especially not over the next 7 teams.
I agree. The next 7 teams are mostly I agree with. Mostly, I can make some arguments for some other things, but we'll see as the season progresses. I think this is just going to make for the Ohio State Michigan game to be a bigger game, which is always good. It's a great rivalry. It's a great game, and we knew that for the Big Ten, the 2 from the Big Ten was going to be Michigan or Ohio State. It's going to come down to that.
Yeah, and then so we move to LSU at 7. That's right where they deserve to be. Obviously, they have the 2 losses, but you beat Alabama, you move up.
Yeah, and I don't think they're better than the next 6 teams. I mean, one of them we can show evidence they're not better than. Maybe if they were to play now, it would be a completely different game. But when they played, they did not play to their best ability, and they got stomped.
Yeah, it's a week-to-week game. Obviously, Tennessee looked great against LSU, who's now the team that beat Bama. But then, this week, LSU looks great against Bama, and Tennessee looks like shit against Georgia. So, it's a game of weeks, and this week happened to not be Tennessee's week, and it is LSU's week. I don't even know if LSU is going to win out because yes, the team looks great. They've made huge jumps this season, but going to Arkansas, and yes, Arkansas is having problems. It's not a lock for LSU to win. They're only favored by 3.
No, it isn't. I mean, their next 2 games are A&M and Arkansas. Now, I did say very confidently earlier that they're going to win out and win the West, but Arkansas and A&M are both pretty good road environment for them, or they have good home crowds. Both those games can get sold out at both A&M and Arkansas. The fans are going to be in the game for the whole game at both those stadiums. So we'll see how it ends up, and we'll see how Brian Kelly gets them prepared. If he lets them, slack off at practice, or if he says he keeps them. At this point of the year, you got to keep your head in the game, nose down, and just into every game. Make it play like you're playing Alabama every week.
Yep. And so we move to number 6, Oregon. Once again, this is where they should be. 8-1. Their only loss is to the number 1 team in the nation, who obviously we've seen will kick the shit out of these top teams. They did it to Oregon, obviously, week 1, but Oregon has made huge strides since week 1, and I do think that Dan Lanning is doing a great thing up there, but the real spotlight's got to be on Bo Nix.
I have to agree. I think that was a good transfer portal pickup. I was never really a big Bo Nix fan because to me, he reminded me exactly of Jake Fromm. Had a great freshman year, and then every year after that, he kind of just was Never really did anything special to me. And then this year, moving to the Pac-12, definitely helped his career. Just really playing to the best of his abilities right now, and you can tell. And he's having fun too.
Yeah. I kind of have him right now where I see it. I think he's number 2 for Heisman. I think C.J. Stroud will kind of get a break from this past week's performance because of the weather, and the game was out of his control. So I think C.J. Stroud stays at 1. I think Hendon drops into probably 3 for Heisman. I think Bo Nix is 2.
Yeah, I definitely like seeing Bo up there. He's a hell of a quarterback.
Yeah, and he was born to play for Auburn. He was born to be a college football quarterback, and that's for sure. A name like Bo Nix, obviously his dad played at Auburn, so he's got the connections. He is good for college football.
Definitely, yeah. College football, there's nothing like it, and he is so good for college football.
Yep. So we move on to another guy who's really good for college football, and that's going to be Hendon Hooker's Tennessee. Obviously, they didn't do what they needed to against Georgia. They looked like shit. They looked inexperienced, and I think that offensive line, those false start penalties, absolutely killed them. That defense for Georgia was so in their heads. By the second drive of the game that you just knew Georgia was going to win.
Yeah, I think this week really showed Tennessee. Yeah, y'all, they were on their high horse, thought they were all that. Oh, we beat Bama. Oh, we beat LSU in Death Valley. This, that, the other, and they go into Georgia expecting it to be just another walk in the park almost. And Georgia on the first drive, opening kickoff, let them know, hey. Everybody's been counting us out. They ranked y'all number 1. All right, that's great. Look at it. Watch us. And they really exposed them for what they were. They came in cocky. They came in overconfident. They definitely underestimated Georgia. So I think it was for Georgia, that was a great game. And, for Tennessee, that was not, because it just exposed them.
Yeah. And if Tennessee does get lucky enough to make it into the playoff, they're most likely going to get in at 4, and I don't see Georgia moving out of number 1. So we might just see it one more time. And I know that the rematch hasn't normally boded well. A lot of times, you're not going to get the 2-0 versus a team. We saw it last year with Bama and Georgia after SEC championship, and then to the championship game. But I don't think this Tennessee team has a chance against Georgia if they play again in the college football playoff.
We can also see a scenario. I'm just going to throw it out there. Georgia goes 9-0. Ohio State or Michigan goes 9-0, and then you have a couple teams, 3 through 10 debatably that are going to be sitting at 11-1. Conference champion 11-1, conference not a conference champion or runner up in the conference at 11-1. So we'll see a lot of people like this, and we'll have to definitely see that pulls out in the end. But Tennessee does have a chance to get in at maybe 3, maybe not. I don't know yet, because if they beat the hell out of the rest of their opponents this season, I couldn't see a situation where you would want to put in like let's just say an 11-1 TCU over a 11 and I mean, yeah, TCU may be a conference champion, but Tennessee at 11-1, their only loss is to the conference champion.
TCU at number 4. This puts a ton of weight on this game this weekend, TCU Texas. If TCU doesn't come out and play extremely well, you can't have a mediocre performance like you had against Texas Tech and expect a win against Texas in Austin.
Yeah, I mean, if they can pull out the win here in Austin and they can go undefeated, they 100% deserve to be in the playoffs. But I mean, there's so many situations, and that's something we can get into later on down the road. But yeah, there's a lot that we can speculate here and look into, but we'll have to wait and see how it all plays out.
Yeah, and then we get into our top 3, which now that you've heard everybody, and I'm sure you've already seen it, it's pretty obvious. Number 3, Michigan, of course. I still kind of think that Michigan has a few more. I feel like they win in a couple more categories than this Ohio State team. Obviously, Ohio State has the passing game, but Michigan has the best run game in the country. They've got a top defense, and they're just all around a very good team.
They are, and I think something, like you said, they're all around a good team. They are not. I think when Michigan and Ohio State play rivalry week, I think what we're going to see is Michigan. They're definitely going to try and make Ohio State one-dimensional, and I think they're going to be able to do that. And I think that's how Michigan might be able to pull it off over Ohio State. A lot of people are going to disagree with me and still say Ohio State's the better team. I mean, I even have Ohio State ranked higher than Michigan in that top 10 we did. After this weekend, I've been sitting and thinking about it. I think as of right now, like you said, in some categories, I think Michigan might be the better team, but we won't see for another few weeks.
Yeah, and then number 2, Ohio State. Number 1, Georgia. There's not much to talk about there. Obviously, Ohio State, rough game this past week, but you can't really base it on anything outside of the weather. And then Georgia, you beat number 1, you got to take their spot.
Yep. Something that, I mean, I make excuses a lot, but I do hate the excuses we give people. Can we just say they played a shitty game? Because, I mean, they really did. I understand the weather was terrible, and we could add that into account to the game, but they just we talked about earlier in this talk, but they just played shitty. They're just a one-dimensional team.
Well, and yes, they are one-dimensional, but you gotta give credit to their passing game and their offense.
They were able to make something out of nothing.
Exactly. If this was any other team that was pass heavy, if this was a Mississippi State playing in these conditions, they're not scoring a fucking point.
Oh no, Mississippi. Yeah, I mean, we see how they are every week. First off, they can't even win outside. If they're not home, they're not winning the game.
Yeah,
there's a lot of issues on that team, and I don't want to get into that because I mean, we were talking about teams that deserve to be in the top 25. I mean, when you can barely even beat Auburn and your head coach on the sidelines folding up your chairs because y'all don't deserve to sit, in his opinion.
Dude, that might be the funniest thing I've ever seen a coach do, because like he could have got an assistant coach to do it. But no, he walked over and folded up their chairs and tossed them on the ground. It was hilarious.
That was so funny to me. I mean, I get it. They weren't playing good. And if they were just sitting over there on their butts the whole time, I'd be like, y'all stand. I get it. I understand it. That's something my high school coaches would have done to me.
Yeah.
Sometimes players just need to be reminded, hey, you're just a player. You're not a god or anything. You're just a football player.
Yeah. So I do want to go ahead. I'm going to present you your grade for your top 10 accuracy.
Let's go.
All right. Number 10. No. You had Ole Miss. Number 9. No. You had UCLA. Number 8. USC. So you're 1 for 3 there. You
go.
missed. You switched Oregon and LSU, and then Michigan completely wrong.
Yeah, I wish I could go back and switch, like put Ohio State at 4, put Michigan at 3, and then TCU at 2.
And then you missed Tennessee, you missed on TCU, and of course you got 1 and 2. So a 3 for 10, you got a 30.
Hey, that's passing.
Hopefully you get some extra credit next week. But and then for me, not to brag, I missed on Ohio State. Alabama's correct. USC's correct. LSU's correct. Oregon's correct. I only missed on Tennessee and TCU. I flipped them. I thought Tennessee would get 4 only because they're the number 1 team. They lose to number 3. I don't really see why TCU moved up to 4 outside of they haven't lost.
I was about to say the only reason the top 4 are the top 4 is because they're all undefeated.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously Georgia deserves to be number 1, of course.
Yes. And then I got Michigan, Ohio State, Georgia. So I got a 70.
You know what? We have our days. We have our moments. Hey, this was my one bad. Okay.
Yeah. And there's always next week.
Always next week. You know. I'll say this though. Not a Georgia fan, but I will put this. I will put in the mail right now. I will be seeing. We will be seeing Georgia in the national championship. Against whom? I don't know quite yet. I want to see the season play out a little more. But definitely, we will be seeing Georgia national championship as an SEC champion.
I like it. And one final thing, if you guys do want to see the weekly top 10s and all of our other clips and content, go check out the social media accounts. We're on Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. Yeah, go check all those out. It'll obviously keep you in the know with when episodes are coming out. And yeah, I think that's all I've got. Anything else you wanted to talk about from this week, Brock?
Oh man, not anything I really think of. Just love football. Excited for this week and got some big games this weekend, and can't wait to watch them and come back to you and talk about them.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll see you guys next week. That's gonna round it out for this iteration of Second and Short.